Thanks a lot for your punctual return. Please take a seat. We have a lot of seats. There is no particular order. You are welcome also to sit very far in the back. I totally understand that. That's usually where I sit. Welcome back to, not this year, let me start again. Welcome back to the connector, to two connectors presentations. The thing I was thinking of was that I know that some other events, very large events like Gartner, if they present several different software implementations like business intelligence tool, you know, like Tableau, the Microsoft tool, the name I forgot for whatever reasons, and then others, not Excel, but others, I forgot those tools. They call that a bake-off. So you have people sitting, so one or two experts sitting somewhere behind the chairs and behind the screen, and they have to demonstrate live to the audience, that would be you, how they solve certain problems. And of course, they know a little bit of the problems, but they have to do that live. So not, oh, we have recorded that demo and we are using this feature which is not available right now to anyone, but we have that hack live right now. They call that a bake-off, and maybe, I'm not sure whether we find candidates, maybe in, I don't know, Porto, maybe the next TechX, MarketX, we are gonna, or at least this would be my suggestion, we're gonna do something like that, especially a connector bake-off or interoperability testing, something interactive, and you, as the audience, would vote who is the winner, who performed best, and who not, yeah. We are not going to do that today, but please let me welcome Juanjo from FIWARE. Please, Juanjo. We will have the presentations about connector, or as the DSSC, the Data Space Support Center, would call them, participant agent services. And also the next call from Frederick, we will have different types of participant agent services, or let's say implementation of those services. Juanjo, the floor is yours. I'm not sure whether you need to introduce yourself in Spain.
Probably not much in Spain, but well, thank you, Christoph, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to present the work we are doing on FIWARE data space components, and one of them is the FIWARE data space connector. I'm Juanjo Hierro. I'm the chairman of the FIWARE Technical Steering Committee. You know, FIWARE is an open source initiative. Following best practices of that initiatives, we are driven by the community and technical direction. That's the Technical Steering Committee, and I'm proud to be the chairman elected every year by the community of developers. Let me start with a bit some position statements I wish to make in regard of what is our vision about data spaces, because what we have found is that it has some distinguishable aspects in compared to other visions. For us, data spaces are not just about exchange of data sets B2B. Of course, this is a kind of a scenario that needs to be covered, but is not enough. From our perspective, data spaces are aimed to be absolutely more powerful ecosystems where not just data will be exchanged, there will be services around data that can be consumed and will be offered by product providers. Services that may not deal just with access to data, but also processing of data, even services like for visualization and interpretation of data. Think about a product provider providing a solution that exploits geodata or images taken from satellites and offering services how you can consume that data from a perspective. That is a very important aspect. Data spaces in that sense will emerge as an opportunity for organizations to extend their systems architecture, incorporating systems from parties that are offering those as a service, typically from the cloud. And also, rather important second position statement is users, individuals, not only legal persons, but also natural persons are participants in data spaces, at least in what respect to consumption of services. So definitely not only B2B interaction, also B2C, B2E, business to employee interactions. Even we want to add business to device interaction. So also devices may have identity in the data space and be able to consume services provided by someone else. And definitely, as I said before, services to be offered are not just about access to data, but also about processing, even involving potentially actuation on the other end. Some key concepts. Yesterday we saw a presentation from Klaus. I remember a slide with a subset of the data model with concept of products and so on. I found it very nice because I think it's quite compatible with our vision, but let me enumerate a couple of concepts that are essential in what we are advocating for, and this is the concept of product, services, resources, and essentially what we will have in the kind of data spaces we envision are product providers, and products are essentially a collection of services that I was mentioning in the slide before. Services, again, that may be providing access to data, may be providing the capability for processing data, or even mechanisms for visualization, interpretation of data. And these services may require certain resources to be able to run. We may have a product that offers a number of services, and this requires certain computing capacity, storage capacity, and a product provider may be defining offerings around those services with different profiles, so that, for instance, premium offerings may come with higher storage and stuff like that for supporting the services for a particular customer. And even some of these resources may require to be deployed in the field. Think about solutions like air quality monitoring product that requires that obviously devices are deployed in the field to be able to capture the data that will be exposed by that product in the data space. So these are concepts that we aim to support in the kind of data spaces. And very important idea is that of what it means in the kind of data spaces we want to enable acquiring the rights to use a product. Essentially, behind a product, we may think about a number of policies, and policies defined around credentials that will be assigned to potential consumers of the services. So those policies will be established as rules based on the credentials and based on what those users with those credentials are able to use. Acquiring the rights to use a product will mean, in the data spaces we envision, that these organizations or these participants that have acquired the rights to use a product become trusted issuers of these kind of credentials. And this will enable full decentralization in the access to this kind of services. Later, when I have acquired the right to use a product, and therefore I become a trusted issuer of those credentials, I may issue those credentials to either employees in my organization or customers of me and so on. And using those credentials, they will be able to authenticate to the product and try to get access to the different services. Of course, I may also issue credentials for application agents, also supporting machine to machine. And it will be during this authentication where essentially the product provider will check, okay, are these credentials have been issued by a trusted issuer, and very important, by a trusted participant in the data spaces. Here is, as we will see soon, where we integrate with Gaia-X. Data space components have been developed with all these concepts in mind. Here you have the link on GitHub to the FIWARE data space components, a number of features that I will be elaborating in the following slides. One very important thing, since we want to support both machine-to-machine but also human-to-machine interaction, is that we heavily support OpenID 4BC for the exchange of verified credentials. So we have components that implement the verifier function that will run as part of the connectors, supporting the two kind of scenarios. OpenID 4BC, by the way, we want to insist, there are some people that question that, but we have tested, is not only for access authentication based on the users, but also machines. And in the typical interaction, here I'm showing the case with the end user involved, but machine-to-machine will be much simpler. Essentially, when a given user intends to authenticate to a given service associated to a product, the verifier in the connector will check in the configuration what are the kind of credentials it needs to request to the wallet. It will receive those credentials, and what it will be doing is to check first if those credentials were issued by a trusted participant in the data space. Here is where we will talk about in the next slide about the onboarding services that we are based, where we are using Gaia-X digital clearinghouse functionalities. And second, it will verify, okay, because the organization that signed these credentials may be a trusted participant, but I need to check whether it's a trusted issuer of these particular credentials of my application, which is something that will only be able if this organization that issued the credentials for this user has essentially contracted the product and has acquired the rights to use it. Onboarding, this is what we are recommending in data spaces projects where they are planning to use the FIWARE data space connector. 2 steps. First, you can, as an organization, create a legal person credential, here following the Gaia-X specifications and leveraging on the services of some Gaia-X digital clearinghouse, be able to get a compliance credential, right? With the 2 credentials, we are kind of proposing that onboarding services can be created that will require, again, will be services that require authentication, because you need to somehow keep the registry of participants under control, and this authentication will be requesting the kind of credentials we obtain in the step before. This will be the way how a given organization, a given participant will register as a trusted participant, and is how, in the previous slide, you know, how it will find that that organization was there in the registry. Authorization management. We essentially, in this interaction, once a given user, could be an application, could be an end user, could be a device, why not, has been checked by the verifier using the OpenID 4BC protocols in this respect. We will generate an access token, a JSON JWT token that includes the credentials, and with this JSON token, it will invoke whatever API or service the connector is ready to work with, essentially any RESTful API and so on, for providing access. How the authorization will work, we have implemented an PEP, PDP, PIP, PAP architecture, based on AP6. We rather believe this is a rather powerful framework, very much supported by the community. And we have developed an OPA agent that enforces ODRL policies that have been established, and where, by the way, we already support Gaia-X, the Gaia-X ODRL profile that has been specified. So based on this, orchestration of these services, essentially any request that is arriving with the token, the credentials of the issuer of the request will be extracted, and those credentials will be tested together with the information about the operation being requested, certain data around that operation. It will be tested whether it complies with the policies. We have implemented an OPA agent that essentially translates from ODRL to RIGO rules and is capable to establish these decisions. Contract negotiation, we rely on standards coming from TM Forum, essentially two APIs, Quote API, TM Product Ordering API. The Quote API is essentially for establishing the negotiation, is how you can describe, okay, you are offering this product with these terms and conditions, but I want to change, I don't know, the pricing model. I want to change certain aspects of what is your offering. This is something that you can do using this API, and then once that negotiation is completed, you issue the product order, and which will mean that any kind of resource that is required to be able to bring service to that particular user will be deployed on the side of the implementation. The Quote API, the very interesting aspect is that it comes with very expressive language, how to describe the kind of changes in the contract that you want to establish, something that, for instance, using the HTTP binding, current binding of the IDS data contract negotiation protocol, data space contract negotiation protocol is difficult because you would be obliged to parse the ODRL to understand what has been changed. However, using this, rely on this Quote API, we will be able to express this more properly. And essentially contracting a given product means that, again, invoking APIs that are supported in the connector, contract management component that implements these TM Forum APIs, and essentially our APIs again protected, so you need to authenticate to be able to perform this invocation, but you essentially will create the codes, will negotiate those codes, and at the end of the day will issue a product order, and once that product order is established, what the connector will do is will register that participant in the local trusted issuers list. So therefore, that participant can really issue the kind of credentials that are relevant for the product that you are bringing access to. We have worked and currently already implemented how this can be compatible with the IDS data space contract negotiation protocol. The question is that we define a different binding. You know, the specification from data space protocols have a core part that is the state machine that needs to be respected. We are able to support that, and they have a binding definition. Currently, bindings are defined based on HTTP, but we are willing to propose bindings based on these more powerful TM Forum APIs. Catalog data space protocol is supported, of course, and the way how we establish the link to the transfer process protocol is that essentially whenever a contract is negotiating, whenever that product ordering is completed, essentially we create an agreement, and with that agreement you have an agreement ID that you can use in the transfer process to essentially say, okay, this upcoming requests are under the umbrella of this conversation, this full transfer, and therefore the authorization management framework will be checking whether at any request, whether the transfer is still active or it has been suspended or whatever. So that's the summary of the whole components. So in terms of very technical aspects, support for OpenID 4BC, suite of protocols, compatibility with Gaia-X digital clearinghouses in terms of onboarding and registration of participants, full authorization based on a pretty stable and robust framework like AP6 and implementing OPA agents that support the Gaia-X ODRL BC profile and compatibility with data space protocols with the binding with TM Forum. Last slide, as a bit of a summary, if you look for a data space where you envision that it's not just only about exchange of data sets, it's also about integrating services, not only access, but also processing, visualization, interpretation. If you are really willing to bring users as first citizens of data spaces and implement authorization policies that take into account the credentials of those users, then FIWARE data space components are for you. And we are not reinventing the wheel and leveraging on the work and collaboration with Gaia-X, among other things, to make sure that whatever we deliver is compatible with the kind of specifications Gaia-X is producing. And that is all, and thank you, and wish you a rest productive day, and in the lunch, happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you, Christopher.